Hey friends, let's get moving. For today's class, you're gonna need a few props. So a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, then probably a thick book might be good. Also a blanket and a bolster. So if you don't have a bolster at home, you can use a pillow, or you can take one of the cushions off of your couch, or you can just stack up a lot of blankets. We're gonna get started digitally today with our digits. So starting with the feet, you can do this seated on the floor, or if it's hard with your joint mobility to reach your feet while you're sitting on the floor, you can sit in a chair and do this part. So we're gonna spread our toes with our fingers, and notice probably the tips of your fingers are narrower than further down towards your knuckles. So start there and try getting the tips of your fingers in between each toe. And now if that feels pretty easy, or you don't feel much of a stretch or a challenge to your tissues, you can start to shimmy more of your finger in between your toes, kind of the wider part of your finger in between your toes. And once you get there, then go ahead and give your foot a squeeze. So my hand is kind of doing this action around my foot. And you can do kind of a pumping squeeze. And you can even use your hand to circle your ankle, guide your foot through some ankle movement. Maybe it's not a circle. Maybe you don't have room for a circle with the way that you're sitting. Maybe you're just kind of noodling around, and that's cool too. Let's go over to the other side. Oh, wait, before we do that, stick out your feet in front of you and spread your toes. And notice if the toes on the foot that you just put your fingers in, notice if those toes spread any farther than the other foot. Not really for me, but the toes on the foot that I just worked on, those toes look like they have more circulation. I'm cold right now, and so the toes on the foot that I didn't do yet, they're still kind of purple. So let's go ahead and get that other foot warmed up. Start again with the narrower fingertips, and depending on your body and your foot, you might stay there. If you feel like you want more of a spreading, more of a stretch for your foot, then go ahead and kind of work up towards the knuckles a little bit more. And once you get there, give your foot that pumping squeeze. And depending on your position, maybe you can steer your foot into some ankle movement. Okay. And go ahead and take your fingers out of that foot. Go ahead and look at your toes again. There we go. Now my toes aren't purple anymore. So that's good. Now we're going to switch to some other digits, our fingers. And you're going to take your thumb in your other hand and hold it like a joystick. And just kind of move your thumb around like you would a joystick in both directions. So great for all that smartphone scrolling that we do. And then after you've joysticked around a little bit, go ahead and take a firm grip on your thumb and pull it back towards your chest, towards your head, and stretch your fingers forward and away towards the floor. So maybe feeling some good stretch right here in like the web area in between the thumb and the first finger. And then as you're there, pulling the thumb back towards you, can you wiggle your fingers? And let's do the other hand now. So, my left hand feels awake. Take your other hand and grab the thumb like the joystick, just relaxed thumb, relaxed hand, wiggling that thumb around. And one thing that you can look for here is how much differentiation do you have between your thumb and the rest of your hand. So like I'm noticing on this hand that when I pull my thumb back towards my chest and my head, my fingers want to come with it more than they did on the other hand. So pay attention to that. And then get a firm grip on your thumb, and you're gonna pull your thumb back towards you. And as you do that, you're gonna reach your fingers away. So again, hopefully feeling some sensation here in the web between the thumb and the index finger. And while you're pulling back there, give the fingers a wiggle. And as you give the fingers a wiggle, you know, you've kind of hooked into the tissue by stabilizing where your thumb is. Can you feel the tissue on the palm of your hand kind of dance as your fingers dance? Pretty cool. Okay, go ahead and relax, shake it out. And we're gonna come into all fours now that our digits are warmed up. And if you have a thin mat or just sensitive knees, go ahead and put a blanket under your knees for extra padding. And so come to your stable table. So your fingers should be wide enough to see the color of your mat in between each finger. Middle fingers pointing forward. And then I want you to look at your elbow crease, the place where you get poked if you're going to give blood. And try to shine your elbow crease in the same direction as your middle finger. And we want to really try to keep that action going on while we're here in all fours. Make your fingers long and strong. So instead of gripping your finger pads into the mat, can you spread through your palm and through your fingers and get a nice long grip on the mat? And now, coming into our stable table, we're gonna pick one hand up at a time. So level one here would be to just pick a hand up and make sure that you can keep the rest of your table stable. And then you can put that hand down. Can you pick up the other hand? And you just kind of go back and forth here. Can you keep your table stable? Can you keep your elbow crease shining into the same direction as your middle finger as you go? And if that's easy, then you're gonna cross over. So left hand is gonna come to right shoulder, and then right hand is gonna come to left shoulder. And you can go back and forth like that. You can go slowly and mindfully. You can go quickly and mindfully. Whatever tempo feels appropriate for you today. I'm going a little slower because I really want to make sure that my elbow creases are pointing in the same direction as my middle fingers, and because I want to make sure that my fingers are staying long and strong so that I'm strengthening more of my hand and wrist. Now, if this feels too easy and you want to kick it up a notch, walk your knees back behind your hips so you're in a modified plank, and then you can play around with, well, can I keep myself stable? Can I keep the alignment points of my elbow creases and my middle fingers and my long, strong hands? Can I keep all of that stable while I'm here? So if you're really rocking the boat as you're going from side to side, I encourage you to back it off to the first level or to the previous level. And again, if you're here in the modified plank and it's feeling too easy, not challenging enough, you can do it in a full plank, which is a lot harder for me. Notice I'm doing a lot of rocking. I'm not as stable here. So if you're feeling like you're doing a lot of rocking from side to side, back it off and come to the place where you can be stable. Because it's a stable table. And then let's go ahead and stop. Curl your toes under and shift your hips back towards your heels. So you're taking some weight off of the hands now, giving your wrists a little break. And as you reach your hips back towards your heels, go ahead and press your toes into your mat. And as you do that, can you press through all the toes evenly? And depending on your foot and the range of motion in your toes, some of your toes might not touch the ground, and that's okay. So just do what you can. Really pressing the toes into the ground. Notice if one foot is doing a better job than the other foot. Notice if one foot's slacking off a little bit. Notice if you can only do one foot at a time, like if your feet don't want to sync up and work together. These are all you're just collecting information. And now, so if the ground feels too far away for this next part, you can bring the ground up to you with a block or 2 blocks, one for each hand. Whatever you can rig up is fine. And I'm going to keep my fingers on the ground to show you. You're going to lift your knees up off the ground and pretend like your feet are the rockers on a rocking chair. And so you might just start by rocking on the balls of the feet and the toes. You might be able to rock towards your heels a little bit more. And again, you can use a block for support. Maybe you can go all the way from knees down to heels down. Just exploring your rocking chair. Last one. And then come back to all fours. So here in all fours, we did stable table. It's time for timetable. And so you're gonna, again, check in with the alignment points of middle finger pointing forward and elbow crease pointing forward. And let's take the right leg and stretch it straight out behind us and put the toe on the ground. So this is 6 o'clock, and you're gonna take your leg from 6 o'clock over to 3 o'clock. And as you go to 3 o'clock, you're trying to keep your hip, your left hip, right over top of your left knee. So you don't want your hip or your body leaning over towards 9 o'clock. You wanna keep stable in the middle. Once your toe gets to 3 o'clock, put your foot on the ground and then shift your hips back towards your heel. Any amount, maybe getting a little inner thigh stretch there. Come back upright into all fours and then take your right foot back to 6 o'clock and put your knee back down on the ground. Other side, left leg stretches out back, put the toe on the ground and then take your leg out to 9 o'clock. Without letting your body move over towards 3 o'clock. And then put the foot on the ground, sole of the foot on the ground, and shift your hips back towards your right heel, almost like you're coming into a child's pose, but your leg is out to the side. And then come back upright. Take your left leg back into 6 o'clock and back into all fours. Now I have to keep moving from side to side as I do this so that I don't hit the wall or go out of frame. So you don't have to do that. You can just stay where you are if you have enough room. So take your right leg out back, toe on the ground, and move from 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And then put your foot on the ground and shift your hips back. Come back to upright fours here and then take your right foot back to 6 o'clock and come back to all fours. And on to the left side. Left foot comes back to 6 o'clock, up to 9 o'clock. Put the sole of the foot on the ground. Shift your hips back, feeling that inner thigh stretch. Come back upright. Left foot back to 6 o'clock and back to all fours. Let's keep going from side to side. And again, you control the tempo. You don't have to go at the same pace as me. You can go slower or faster. Just make sure that when those moving points, when you're moving from 3 o'clock back to 6 o'clock, and when you're moving from 6 o'clock out to 3 o'clock, that's when you really want to focus on your stability in your table position, and you don't want to be wobbling or rocking from side to side. One more each side at your own pace. Finishing on the left, because we started on the right. And returning to all fours. And then let's go ahead and get off our hands again, come to a seated position. If you need to shake out your hands or your wrists, go for it. Now, we're gonna pay attention to our knee, lower leg, and foot for just a moment. You probably think about your knee as a hinge joint that moves open and closed, like your elbow moves open and closed. But just like your forearm can twist like this, your lower leg does a twist as well at the knee joint. So you're gonna take your knees or your hands and secure your knee and your thigh bone in place. And I've got my left heel on the ground right now. Just get your right leg out of the way. Again, you can do this sitting in a chair as well if that's more comfortable for you. So you got your hands securing your knee, and then train your attention on the bony prominences right underneath your kneecap. Those are the tops of your shin bones, okay? And you're gonna swivel your heel into the ground, like you're kind of grinding something under your heel. And it's gonna look like, it's gonna present as your foot doing kind of a windshield wiper from side to side. But the action isn't just static in the ankle. It comes all the way up from here, from the shin bone, rotating, just like the forearm rotates like this. So you can watch the bony prominence on the top of the shin to see that it's moving. Now this might be showing up for you as a micro movement, and that's fine. You might notice, holy cow, there's a lot of movement going on here. That's fine too. Things are starting to get tired. This is a spot that gets kind of sticky. So it's important to unstick it. That's what we're doing. Let's go ahead and switch to the other side, other leg. So I'm gonna put my right leg out. Just get your left leg out of the way and use your hands, vice grip your knee so it doesn't move. You don't want your thigh bone to be moving at all. And you're gonna kind of, again, grind the heel into the ground. It's gonna present as your foot doing a windshield wiper. And you're training your attention, your gaze, to look here at the top of the shin bone, at that bony prominence there. You wanna see it swiveling or moving. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it's not big like this. Maybe it's little like this. So this action is really important when we bend our knees, especially if we're doing things like squats. This is a really important action, and if this spot gets stuck, then you might be experiencing some knee pain. And really you want to do this until you start to feel the muscles around it fatigue, and then you know you've really worked it. So that's going to be a different amount of time for anybody. So it's hard to account for that in a one-size-fits-all workout video. So this is a movement that you can take and you can do off the mat whenever you want. It doesn't have to be, as part of your mat time. Woo, okay, and stop. Let's come back to all fours now for a moment. Now, again, lining up the hands, middle finger, elbow crease, pointing in the same direction. Now, keep your spine static where it is and just tune in to your pelvis. So we're gonna tilt the pelvis down, so the hip points are gonna move down towards the ground, towards the thighs, And as that happens, the tailbone is lifting towards the ceiling. And then opposite, tuck the tailbone under. So I really want you to just try focusing on your pelvis here. This isn't like a cat-cow action that you would do in like a yoga class. We're just isolating the pelvic tilt movement here and keeping the rest of the spine stable. Again, this gets to be a sticky spot too, depending on how and where you sit and for how long. Just waking it up. Now, come into the tailbone lifted. So this is anterior pelvic tilt. You're gonna come into that tailbone lifted pelvic tilt. Curl your toes under if they're not already, and start to slowly, mindfully take your hips back towards your heels. Now you want to go slowly and mindfully because as soon as you feel your pelvis start to tuck under, that's where you want to stop, and you actually want to come forward out of it a little bit so that you can keep that anterior tilt. So again, you can relax, wiggle it out, try again. So lift your tailbone, anterior pelvic tilt, and we're starting to take the hips back towards the heels, and you're gonna stop when you feel your tailbone start to tuck under, when you feel your pelvis start to go into a posterior tilt. And you're gonna hang out there. So this is like a deep squat, just turned on a different relationship to gravity. Breathe there. And then walk your hands back towards your knees. And if you used your block for the rocking chair last time, go ahead and grab it again and see if you can keep the same position of your pelvis as you pop your knees up off the ground. So I'm not able to kind of sink into the rocking chair as much as I did in the beginning if I'm trying to keep my pelvis in that same position. Because if I let myself kind of relax into my joints like I did before, my pelvis just tucks right under, which isn't always a bad thing, but this is just a different way that I want you to experience the position. So again, you can come into it one more time. Lift your tailbone from all fours, anterior pelvic tilt, shift your hips back. Now, if you don't have a lot of range of motion in your knee joints or in your hip joints, and you can't get your bottom back towards your heels very much at all, this is where something like a chair to hold on to might be really helpful to help support you in that position. So once you get as far as you can, right before your pelvis starts to tuck under, you're gonna pause there, hands on blocks or on a chair or fingers on the ground. Exhale, lift up your knees and come into your rocking chair right there. So rocking on the balls of the feet and the toes. You might be able to get your heels on the ground, but when I do that, when I put my heels on the ground, my pelvis tucks under. I've lost the anterior tilt. So be honest with yourself. There's no prize for getting your heels down, at least not right now. There might be in some other instance, like, oh, if you have to go for a hike and you have to pee in the woods, then there's definitely a prize for being able to get your heels down. Okay, let's go ahead and come back with knees down and lift yourself up. Whew, shake it out. So I'm gonna put my blanket down for padding under my knees. If you wanted to, you can do it too. Okay, so we're in a high kneeling position here. Your knees are right underneath your hip points. Okay, not out too wide, not in too close. And we have a neutral pelvis here. Neutral pelvis is your hip point, which is called your ASIS, and your pubic bone are in a line with one another. So because we're right side up in gravity, that's going to be a vertical plane. Now, if you have extra tissue here, that's fine. You have to kind of imagine, well, where are my bones actually? We're not asking for you to suck in the soft tissue here to make a flat line. I want you to think about, where are my bones? What is my structure, my deep structure like right here? So is my hip bone vertical to my pubic bone, or is my pubic bone in front of my hip bone? It's going to look a little bit more like this. Maybe your pubic bone is behind your hip bone. It's going to look a little bit more like this. Come to neutral. Okay. Hands to hips, and you want to keep that neutral as we go. So you're going to try to trace a straight line forward with your right leg as you come into a low lunge position. And that's going to ensure that your stance isn't too wide or too narrow. Keeping pelvic neutral, start to lunge forward. So when you step, I'm going to back up. I should have said, take your foot forward of your knee, your ankle forward of your knee, and that's going to give you room to lunge. Okay, so you're going to shift your pelvis forward into a lunge as far as you can go before your pelvis moves. And then going to put one hand on your solar plexus and one hand on your upper chest, and you're going to swivel twist. So in the swivel twist, you're not using your arms or your shoulders or your neck to rotate your body. You're really just using your trunk muscles. Now, let's go ahead and stop the swivel twist. Bring your left hand to the ground. You can do this next part with the back knee tucked under, or you can curl the toes under and lift the back knee up so you're in a high lunge position. You're going to take your right hand and put it on your left shoulder so it's crossed in front of you. And then as you inhale, release your right shoulder down towards the ground, your right elbow down towards the ground, any amount. So this is like you're releasing into a twist. Take a breath in. And then as you exhale, you're going to use your trunk muscles to lift your right shoulder up towards the ceiling, untwisting in the other direction. So inhale is a passive twist, releasing the right shoulder, right elbow down. Exhale is more active, using the trunk muscles to open the chest towards the right. Again, choose your tempo, mindful and slow, or mindful and fast, or mindful in the middle. Last one. Great. Come to neutral. Put your left knee down. Help your right leg get back into our high kneeling position. Just shake it out. Neutral pelvis. So hip points, ASIS, and pubic bone are vertical. Remember, the tissue right here, your belly, your soft belly might not be flat vertical. I hope it's not flat vertical because stuff's got to move, you know? So get your pelvic neutral. Your knees are right under your hip points so that when you trace a straight line forward with your left foot, your stance is not too wide or too narrow. And you're stepping forward so that your left ankle begins in front of your left knee. And so here, hands to hips, and shift your pelvis forward so you're coming into a low lunge position, and you're going to stop before you feel your pelvis either tuck under is probably what it's going to do, or go forward. Okay, so keeping neutral pelvis. And then swivel twist. So one hand to your solar plexus, one hand to your chest. Use your trunk muscles. And I've got to say, it's pretty hard to talk during the swivel twist because your diaphragm and your breathing muscles are getting all twisty-wisty also here. So if you want to give yourself a little bit more cardio, just like talk through this swivel twist. And then stop the swivel twist, put your right hand down, and you have the choice. You can pop your right knee up off the ground so you're in more of a high lunge, whatever you want to do. Left hand comes to right shoulder. So as you inhale, left shoulder releases towards the ground. And then as you exhale, the trunk muscles rotate you towards the left, facing the left into a twist. Inhale, it's a passive releasing twist. Exhale, active twist. So sync up with your tempo, whatever you want. Make sure that your breath is moving with your body. Inhale to release, because when you exhale, you want your tummy muscles to help you with that twist. And last one. Untwist and put your right knee down if it was lifted. Get your left knee back to meet your right knee. Come up into your kneeling position, shake it out. And then we're gonna make our way up to standing. So can you get up to standing without using your hands? So I'm gonna come through a lunge like that. Maybe you come through a lunge, but you need a little push with your hands. That's fine. Maybe you need a lot of hands-on assistance with the ground, and that's fine too. Just getting up and down off the ground can be a really good workout. I'm gonna get the blanket out of the way. We're gonna come into a short stance. So let's take the left foot forward and the right foot back. So your feet are still like in a parallel position and hip distance apart. You just step the left foot forward a little bit, kind of like you're taking a step. Now, bring your hands to your hips and find your bony hip points, your ASIS again. So hopefully right now, your hip points, sometimes I want to say hip bones and sometimes I want to say hip points, and then it comes out as like hip bones or hip points, whatever they are. Make sure that they are in a line with one another. So we want, if they're like the headlights of a car, you wouldn't want one of your headlights pointing forward more. Okay, you want them to be in a line with one another. Because if one's pointing forward, it means that you're kind of doing some sort of a twist right here, and we're not interested in twisting at this point. So starting in this very neutral, stable position, go ahead and push down into your back foot, into your right foot. And as you do that, hopefully you feel your right hip, the right side of your pelvis, move down towards the ground. And then press down into your left foot. And as you do that, hopefully you feel the left side of your pelvis move down. And you're gonna rock your weight forward and back. So pressing into the right foot and then pressing into the left foot. So if I face you, it looks like this. So pressing into the right foot, the right hip moves down, the right side of the pelvis moves down, and then pressing into the left foot and the left side of the pelvis moves down. And so we're just shifting back and forth like a rock walk. We're rocking like we would be walking. And so what you want to avoid is this. Okay, can you see that this is a twist? My headlights, my hip headlights are not in the same plane anymore, and we want to keep them in the same plane. So it's just straight front to back movement. Okay, let's go to the other side. So coming to feet hip distance apart, parallel, then just step your right foot forward a bit. Your feet are still parallel. They're still hip distance apart. Hands to hips. Making sure that you're starting with your headlights in a line. You want your hip bones, hip points to be in the same plane. Okay, and again, push down through your back foot, your left foot, and feel the left side of your pelvis move down towards the ground. And then push straight down through your left foot and feel the left side of the pelvis move down. Now, this is the right side of the pelvis. Let me try that again. So you're gonna push down through your left foot and back, and then push down through your right foot and front. And you're rock walking. So it's almost like you're about to transfer your weight to take a step, but you're staying put. And so for me personally, it does take a lot of attention to avoid the twisty-wisty walk. Okay, so we really want to make sure that your pelvis is just shifting like this. Bloop, 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 bloop. Not bloop, 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 bloop. I know that bloop is the technical scientific sound effect for this activity. So I'm starting to feel some fatigue in my legs and in my hips. Hopefully you are too. This is going to make you a better walker. Okay, last one and stop. Okay, so if you need to shake out your lower legs or your feet or anything like that, do that. Take a deep breath. Let it out. So just come to a strong stance with your feet about hip distance apart. And let's wake up our waist and our rib cage a little bit. So hands to hips, and you're just gonna do a rib slide from side to side. Okay, so it's not, your shoulders aren't doing it. It's just your ribs shifting laterally side to side. Okay, ooh, I popped. I didn't know if you could hear that. And then can you take your ribs back and forward? Ooh, and forward. And maybe you can take your ribs in a big circle. Can you go the other way? Feel your trunk working to move your rib cage around. Okay, now take your feet wide, turn your toes out wider than your heels, and bend your knees into a squat. And so here you can put your hands on your thighs and take your ribs in that full circle. And again, I'm not gonna talk. I'm not gonna try to talk while I do a full rib rotation because it's really hard. Your diaphragm's getting like beep, squished. So if you wanna up level here, try talking while you're doing this. So I'm gonna be quiet for a minute. And reverse. For 3, 2, and 1. Stand up. shake it out, take a moment, relax. We're gonna come down to the ground now, and you will need your blanket. So you're gonna wanna roll your blanket. Okay. Put that down about the middle of your mat. So the seam of the roll is down on the ground, and come down to your belly. So you want the blanket roll to kind of hit right here in between the hip point and the pubic bone. If you have to pee, this will let you know. Feel free to press pause and go and run and do that. So you're gonna come down to rest with your forehead on your hands. And start by letting your bottom relax and letting your legs relax for a moment. Just take a deep breath. Good. Now curl your toes under. So as I curl my toes under, my knees are still on the ground. That's good. That's what I want you to do too, if that works for your body. Now, take a breath in, and then as you exhale, straighten your left leg so that your left knee picks up off the ground, and then lift your left toes off the ground any amount. So your leg is straight, you're doing a little bit of a leg lift here, and then toes come down, knee comes down. Relax. Take a breath in to prepare, and exhale. Right leg straightens, right leg lifts. And then toes come down, knee comes down, relax, inhale. And exhale, left side. So you want to be doing the work here. You can keep going from side to side. You want to be doing the work here on your exhale. Hopefully, you're feeling your glute muscles and your buttocks starting to work to help you lift your leg. Again, you choose your tempo. So you might not be lifting your leg very high at all. That's okay. If you're lifting your leg really high, and so high that part of your pelvis is lifting up off the ground, or you're noticing that your trunk is twisting, I want you to back it off, please, for this purpose today, so that we can really zero in on the glutes. So again, ideally, you would get to work here until the point of fatigue. And what does fatigue look like? Fatigue looks like really shaky muscles. Fatigue might also be more of a mental fatigue of like, oh, I just really feel like I can't connect to this muscle anymore. My brain is too tired to connect to this muscle anymore. So last one. End on the right side because we started on the left. And relax the tops of the feet to the ground. Give a little wiggle. And then lift yourself up just enough so that you can take your blanket out and put it off to the side. And we're going to come back down to the back or back down to the belly. And this time take your arms out in front of you. So with your arms out in front of you, you're going to have your chest and head lifted, and you're going to pay some attention to your neck. So you don't really need if your chin is pointing forward and your neck is scrunched, we'd like to avoid that. So choose the angle of your head in such a way that your neck can be nice and long. And now take a breath in, and as you exhale, feel your tummy muscles engage as you float your hands up off the ground. Okay, so here we're going to do some swimming with our arms. You're going to bring your elbows back to field goal position. So you want to make sure, don't bring your elbows too far back. You want your elbows in a line with your shoulder joint. Then touch down. So fingertips come down to the ground. And this is kind of an opportunity to really snuggle your shoulder blades in towards one another. Then seeing if you can keep that strong shoulder, strong upper back, and bring your hands back into field goals, and then dive the arms forward straight. So take a breath in if you haven't, and exhale. Elbows bend, so you're in field goals. You have 90-degree joint in the elbow, 90-degree angle in the elbow joint. Fingertips touch down. And as the fingertips touch down, you haven't lost any height in your upper arm bones. Your upper arm bones stay just where they are. And then you pick your hands back up into field goals. Again, not losing any height or placement in the upper arm bones. They're just rotating. Dive forward. So keep going at your own pace. Keep breathing. For 3, 2, and 1. Last one. And dramatically collapse into a puddle on the ground. And you can shake your hips a little, rock them from side to side. Take a deep breath in and let it out. So from here, come back up to all fours. And again, you can put the blanket under your knees if you need that padding, and drop down onto your forearms. So you want your forearms to be about shoulder width apart. You don't want your forearms out too wide, and you don't want them too close together. And here, with your palms on the ground, start to shift your hips back towards your heels, and that's going to take your shoulders further away from your elbows. Now, as you do this, don't let your elbows squeak out away from one another. Keep your elbows right where they are. And you can kind of toggle forward and backward here, working more into the shoulders. If you want a static stretch, just sit back and breathe. If the movement kind of helps you feel like you're teasing out the tension a little bit better, then do that. And then come back up to your forearms and flip your palms over. So your palms face the ceiling, and glue your fingernails to the ground. And again, shift back, and now see if you can go back as far as you could before while still keeping your fingernails glued to the mat. Whew, that's tough, isn't it? And you might notice that one shoulder feels a little different, or one arm feels a little different than the other. Again, you can hang out for a static stretch, or you can keep moving if that helps you feel like you're teasing out the tension a little bit better. Last one. Okay. Whew. Relax that. Come on out of that. Okay, it's time to lie down on our backs. So when you lie down on your back, you want to prop your head up. And your shoulders up. So let me show you what I mean. Move your microphone. So when you lie down on your back and extend your legs, you might feel like your rib cage is kind of pointing up towards the ceiling. And we would like the rib cage and the pubic bones, or the hip bones and the pubic bone, to be kind of all in the same field of play here without really crunching our abs at this point. So you might be able to just put a blanket under your shoulders, maybe puff it up a little bit under your head, and see now my ribs are smoothed down a little bit. If that doesn't do it for you, if you need more height, another option is your bolster. So again, you want it right underneath the tops of the shoulders. And I would even probably put something under my head here. So you have options. Take a moment to get situated. I prefer to use the blanket. Okie doke. Wardrobe adjustments, pull up the pants, pull down the shirt. Okay, so we're actually gonna start with our knees bent, feet on the floor. Find your pelvis again. Hip points and pubic bone are in a line here, okay? This is your neutral pelvis in this position. And your back, depending on the shape of your body and the soft tissue that you have, your back might not be touching the ground. Your lower back might not be touching the ground, and that's okay. Okie doke. So try to keep everything stable. And the first step here, the first level would be to play around with picking up 1 foot at a time. Now, if you pick up 1 foot at a time, can you keep your pelvis stable? If you feel a lot of bulging out pressure on your abdomen or down in your bottom, then you're gonna wanna make sure to not push yourself too hard. We don't want our body bulging out here. We want to be condensing a little bit more. So now we'll kick it up a notch. So let's lift up the right foot. So there's 90 degrees in the knee. The right hand is going to come to the left knee. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, you're going to push your knee into your hand and your hand into your knee. And as you do that, hopefully you feel your navel draw back towards your spine and kind of the muscles here in your low belly and in your pelvis all hollowing towards the ground. And then release, and other side. So right foot up, left hand to right knee. Take a breath in and push. And release. So go from side to side. Now, if this feels too easy or too hard, if it's too hard, skip the push, okay? Just do hand to knee. If it feels too easy, you're gonna come to hook lie position. So that's both feet lifted. And so for you, it's gonna look like right foot down, right hand to left knee, push, and you push on the exhale, and then come back to hook lie, and left foot down, left hand to right knee, and push. So you go from side to side. And if you wanna speed it up, and you still have to go with your breath. So your inhale is gonna get you to switch sides, and your exhale is gonna be the push. Now, as you're doing the push, watch out for your pelvis tucking under and flattening your lower back to the ground. Keep your pelvic neutral. Three, 2, 1. Relax. If you want to give your knees a hug into your chest, you can. Rock a little bit. Okay. Go ahead and get that support out from under your head. And from here, reach your fingers towards your heels, and you want to be able to have your fingers kissing your heels. Feet hip distance apart. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, lift your hips. Inhale, hips down. Exhale, hips lift. So go at the pace of your own breath, and with your extra attention, focus on your pelvis, the movement of your pelvis. So we want the pelvis to be riding an elevator straight up and down. Most elevators go straight up and down unless you're Willy Wonka, but I don't think you are. So your elevator, your pelvis needs to go straight up and straight down. Last one. And relax hips down. Give your left knee a hug and slowly extend your right leg. Pull your left knee in towards your chest. And then interlace your fingers behind your left thigh, and you're gonna push with your leg until your leg straightens any amount. But as you're pushing with your leg to straighten, you're pulling with your hands. So you're creating some resistance there for yourself. Now, as you push your left leg into your hands, you're also gonna push your right leg straight down into the ground. And soften that tension. Bend your left knee again. Now take your right hand to the outside of your left knee, and you're gonna steer your left knee across your body diagonally. So not really coming into a twist, but maybe coming into a twist. It's clear as mud, right? Okay, and return to both knees bent. Fingertips kissing the heels. Take a breath in. As you exhale, lift your hips. Inhale, hips down. Exhale, lift. Inhale, down. Last one. Exhale, lift. Inhale, down. Give your right knee a hug. Extend your left leg on the mat. Pull your right knee in towards your chest. Interlace your fingers behind your right thigh and start to push your leg into your interlaced fingers as you straighten the leg up and pull back with your hands. So you're giving resistance here. And as you're doing that resistance between your arms and your right leg, you're going to push your left leg straight down into the ground. Bend your right knee, relax that tension. Left hand to the outside of the right knee. Steer your right knee diagonally across your torso. Might be a mini twist, it might not be a twist. It might be a stretch, it might not be a stretch. And relax, put both feet on the ground, fingertips kissing the heels. Take a breath in, exhale, lift into bridge. Inhale, hips down. Exhale into bridge, lifting the hips straight up the elevator. Inhale down. Last one. Exhale, lift your hips up. And inhale down. So now if you want to get really comfortable, you could put that blanket back underneath your head. Bring the soles of your feet together and your knees apart. And put your hands on your low belly. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Just be effortless. let go through the muscles of the hips and legs. Relax your jaw and your face. And while you're resting here, create a spark of gratitude in your heart. Think of something that you feel grateful for. Really see if you can feel a physical felt sense of gratitude in your body. For me, it feels like a warm feeling in my heart. Notice what it feels like for you. Whatever that feeling is, can you let it spread through your whole body? Can you let it envelop your body here on the mat? Keep that feeling with you as you bring your hands under your thighs and bring your knees back towards one another. Keep that feeling with you as you roll over to one side and slowly sit up. Keep that feeling of gratitude, that physical felt sense of gratitude in your body with you as you go about the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so proud of you. I hope you're proud of you too. See you next time.